Welcome and welcome back to my channel, Life and Library of Proofrock. So today's discussion is going to be about graphic novels. So let's begin. So in this video, we are going to talk about graphic novels. So first I would like to say that I am a beginner as well in this domain, and it's not very long since I started delving into graphic novels. And if you're a beginner like me, so I would like to say that graphic novels at first is not a genre in itself. A book can be classified in any genre like romance or fiction, fantasy, or perhaps horror, and it is the presentation of the content of the book that makes it a graphic novel. So graphic novels are usually represented with illustrations and very limited writing, which again is presented in thought bubbles or speech bubbles. So that's the format. So in this video, first we are going to talk about some banned books, a book by a popular writer. This is going to be interesting. Some autobiography and some new publications as well. So let's begin with one of my favorites, which I recently read. I've been trying to read this for a long time now, but I've only got the chance to read it like recently. So this is Maus by Art Spiegelman, and this is the real life come fictional version of surviving the Holocaust, surviving in concentration camps, in prisons. That's the main part of the book. Okay, so now let's get into the book. So Art Spiegelman in this book presents a real life conversation between him and his father, who was a Jewish man and trying to survive the Holocaust. Now, the most interesting thing about this book is that Art Spiegelman has tried to dehumanize the characters. So the Jews are represented as cats, and the Jews are represented as rats, and the Germans are represented as cats, hunting them. So you see a lot of vivid descriptions, very graphic and horrific examples of how the Jews had been tortured, and the representation in form of animals makes it even more horrifying. The character of Waldeck, who is the father of Art Spiegelman here in this book, is suffering from, now he is narrating the story while he was in prisons and trying to survive, and also the present situation, that is the conversation between the father and the son. Now you see a lot of psychological damage that his father had faced, and the repercussions are faced in the present life. So the graphic of this book is so vivid that one might crumble while reading this. I remember I felt very anxious while I was reading this. Such is the description of this book. Okay, so the next book I would recommend is The Strange Library. It is by Haruki Murakami. Now, in my previous video, I discussed about Murakami, and I did not bring up this book because I wanted to talk about it separately. Now, this might seem like a children's book because the content is perhaps for children, but it is not. Trust me, it's not. Now, the major theme that is present in this book is about freedom. So this is about a boy who enters into a library, and he is intimidated by a man who locks him up. So there is a metaphor working here, that is the library is turning into a prison for this boy. The knowledge here is the metaphor. So the man wants the boy to read the book so that he could eat his brain up. So this is a story about surviving the prison, a metaphorical prison, and while he decides to run away, because that seems like a valid idea for him. He realizes that his running away, his escape, was a part of the plan as well. It was decided that he would run away and he would be caught again. So this is Strange Library. I would recommend, if you are into Murakami and into graphic novels, do read this book. This won't disappoint you. Okay, so the next book we are going to talk about is Persepolis. So this is the first part and this is the second part. Now, Persepolis, written by Marjane Satrapi, is an autobiography presented in graphic novel format. Persepolis has been made into a film as well, but I would suggest you to read the book because this seems more closer to the writer. Now, this book, this is the first part. This talks about Satrapi's initial days in Iran. Now, the book shows the last days of the rule of the Shah and the entrance of Khomeini's rule, the Islamic Revolution, and the transition that has been faced by Iran in between. So, now Satrapi here is the protagonist of the story, the little girl, who is very political, who has a lot of curiosity about politics, and she wants to know about her family's background regarding politics. There are a lot of interesting characters that she encounters. For example, her uncle Anush, who talks to her about a lot of things. And then after that she is sent to Austria. Now, this book contains the story about Austria and how she felt about being there, how she had been otherized because of her religious beliefs, because of her dressing, and talks about her depression, and also about returning back to Iran, after which she left Iran again forever. Now, I would suggest you to read this book because it not only this book is more personally traumatic from the point of view of a young girl, and this is more personally traumatic and this is more socially traumatic. I would suggest you read this because it not only talks about a certain someone, it talks about Iran itself, the people, how they have been dealing with the entire political scenario of the nation, and the little struggles that have been faced by them. The next book is Logicomics. Now, I have to admit that this is the most interesting graphic novel that I have ever read so far. So, there's an interesting video on YouTube, and I'll try to link it in the description, where the writers, the illustrators, the makers of this book, let's say the makers, there are a lot of them, the makers of this book have discussed the process of their writing and how the story had evolved within them, within their discussion. It's a very interesting short video. I hope you watch that video as well. So now, Logicomics is a story within a story within a story. The representation is in that way. So now, Logicomic here treats Bertrand Russell as a character. Now, Russell, as you might know, he is a philosopher and also a mathematician. Now, while I was reading this book, I was wondering, what if maths was taught in this way in schools? For example, I hated maths, and maths could get so much interesting if it was taught in a philosophical way, or in a realistic way, or perhaps in a mythical way even, but somehow it would be related to our daily lives. What is the usefulness of calculus, of set theory, and all of that? Now that I am more into philosophy, I realized that this book has an interesting way of representing maths. So, set theory here is represented through postmodernism. There is a link between postmodernism and set theory, and the book takes Derrida's outside text and relates it to calculus. So it's a very interesting read. It is loved, as much as I've talked about this book, it is loved by all everyone who is inclined towards philosophy, towards maths, and towards graphic novel, or anyone in general. This book has talked about the numberness of a number, of a digit. So I would suggest you to read this. Okay. So now, the last book that I would like to recommend is this. So now these two books were sent to me by Swambhu Publications. They are a new publication, and I like their motive. So generally, in the domain of comics and graphic novels, we Indians are generally inclined towards reading the Western books. We are more interested into per se DC, Marvel, and several other comics and graphic novels. Now this publication has tried to make their own, our very own Indian version of the comics. A superhero. This story is about a superhero. I'm not going to talk about the story because I would suggest you to buy. You can go to their websites, swambhucomics.in. These books are available on the website. And the most important thing is that their book is available in Hindi as well. So you can get it in 2 languages, English and Hindi. And the characters are Indianized, very Indian and very desi. So I recommend this too as well. That's all for today. I hope to see you on my next video. Till then, bye.